Next, let's clone rock, paper, scissors, and I will explain it. And it does contain some extra theory. Not a lot, but some theory. So I copied this, a link, and I'm cloning it. Okay. Clone. It's a wrong folder, so this is your section, and clone. Trust project. Here it is. It's still, it needs npm install as usual. Okay, so let's see what it does. It shows warnings. These warnings are not due to the code what is here. It is due to used libraries, and perhaps these features of these libraries are not even used. We discussed it previously in the class. The way to deal with it is to update libraries. How to do it? npm update. If it doesn't have, do it npm audit fix. If it doesn't do it, npm audit fix false. Okay. But when you do npm audit fix false, it can break your code. So in some cases, you have to edit code after this. Or edit some, not necessarily your code, but explicit links to libraries. You would have to open settings files and explicitly change library numbers in order to make it. So for now, I will just ignore it. You definitely need to care about this issue when you post application on server accessible from web, and if your application is sensitive in terms of it has access to user data that you don't want to disclose. Obviously, you don't want to disclose user data. You need to care about using current libraries. So let's run this application and see behavior, and I will explain what it does. So you select paper, rock, scissors. So behavior is the same as Spring Boot application, but it is done entirely manual. I selected scissors, I play it, and now my input, this is random choice of computer, and result I won. Okay, going back, it didn't remember rock, it didn't remember my choice, and it is restored default. Scissors, again, so versus I bought again, but computer choice is random. It's just by accident. Okay, still why? Okay, it's supposed to be random. Why it's repeating the same thing? Okay, play again. Yeah. Okay, that was accident. So let's. It just really wanted me to be happy, so I won. Okay, so let's continue. Play. Oh, obviously we have two pages. So we have input page and output page. So in your assignment that will be posted next week and discuss it next week, you will have input page and output page. So when we open app component HTML, we see router outlet. It is the marker where pages are inserted. On the input page, we have stuff in between header and footer. This. On the output page, the same between header and footer. So this piece is replaced. Definitely we need to share data in between and do some business logic. So for this purpose, I created class game service. And they generate service game. It created me game service class. In order to define business logic easier, I define it to enumeration types similar to code of Spring Boot. Remember that in Spring Boot code, I define it two enumeration types. One is called game result which says user wins, computer wins for a player. If you define enumeration type without assigned values, this is not assigned value. Just add it element that by default it will be 0. It will assume numbers under the hood. If you assign strings, it will use strings. When you display them, you have to convert numbers into strings using switch or some other logic. But when you assign strings, you can display it as it is. Okay. So let's see. I also define it choice, and in this case I assign it string. Why? To show that there are two variants of enumeration type and we need to handle it differently. So it's a demo. I could use strings in both cases. Okay. So in my service, I created, so it is injectable. I have gain data object stored inside. Gain data, it is what is shown to output screen. So what is inside of game data? Game data, it's a class. I added this with ng generate class game data. It stores user choice, computer choice, and game result. So game data is shown on the output, and it is stored inside of the service. In order to create this object, we call constructor and provide two values, user choice and computer choice, and it will figure out result because I can figure out this logically. And it will also help to make it consistent because I don't want inconsistent data. A result should be consistent with two choices. Okay. Remember that Java has switch that returns value. TypeScript does not have a switch that returns value. For this reason, I have to use return in order to achieve similar result. So private static, since it's static, it has to be called with the name of the class. So you see name of the class. So static, this you provide two values and it will figure out result. And I use switch inside of the switch to do it. So if user choice is paper and computer choice is neither rock or paper, it means scissors, it means computer wins. Okay. So I use default for the third choice. So this is logic is inside of game data, business logic is inside of game data and service, right? And service is storing game data and it is updated when we submit user choice. You see play user choice. When we call play user choice, it generates get random choice for computer choice. And using the computer choice variable, it's local variable let. Using this local choice variable, it is creating new game data object and assign it here, based on user choice and computer choice. Okay. So this is the logical side of the service. And service is injected into input page and output page. So inside of input page, you see constructor and game service is injected. And by default, it starts with rock. It means my template must be initialized to rock first. You see checked rock. And this is not data binding. I'm calling set user choice on click. So if we update variable manually on some event, we need to make sure that we start from the same value, otherwise it will be out of sync, right? In the beginning. So I made rock check it and I assign it this to rock. When we use data binding, logic is simpler because we data binding makes sure that it is always the same. Okay. So there is a branch called data binding. So let's see difference. So I will stop it and I will switch branch to data binding. A remote data binding checkout. So in the data binding branch, input component, you see, I'm using ng model to data bind value from these radio buttons to variable user choice. So how it would work? We're already familiar with data binding with drop-down list, right? So when we select value in the drop-down list, it will assign selected value to the variable. So for radio button, the same. When we click select it with the radio button, it will assign this value to that variable. Okay. And this variable will be in sync both directions. So if I assign it rock, starting selection will be rock. So I don't need to say check it because it will be rock, because the variable is rock by default. Okay. So this obviously is shorter code, right? Data binding is shorter, and it has less options to get back. Okay, so by default, if it is possible to do data binding, do data binding. All right. So what happens when we click play? So when we click play, we call play from game service, and we submit user choice. And what happens in in game service you already saw, right? It is making random decision for computer, and it builds game. Next, we already tested it by running code. So let's use Angular tool in a browser. So at the previous lesson, I asked you to install Angular tool into browser. It is plugin into Chrome. And how to do it? If you didn't do it, please do it now because this is necessary. It's a good idea to have it. You go to website of Angular, you type angular.dev. After this, you go to docs. You scroll, find developer tools. Go to dev tools here. When you click it, you see link to Chrome Web Store. Click on Chrome Web Store. It takes you to Chrome Store, and this will be install plugin. In my case, it says remove because it's already installed. If it's not installed, it will be button install. Please do that. It's very quick. Please do it. And I will show how to use it. All right. So when you use it, you close these things. You open page associated with Angular and open developer tools. More tools, developer tools. It is not opened by default because by default it opens tools of a browser that comes with browser by default. Angular plugin is hidden here. You click on here and select Angular because it doesn't fit the line. And when you do so, it opens this plugin output. So what do you see? You can see your components on the screen by moving mouse. So this is app root component. This is a header component. Router outlet is not shown because it's just marked to insert component, but it's not shown itself. But you can see what is inserted, input page. This input page contains this button, so somehow it shows separately. And this is a footer component. Okay. You can also see public variables from the components. For example, You click on footer, and you see value of today, right? And you see also public variable inputs, applied computing, that assign it to it. So you can see public stuff. Input is also public. If it is like array, you click on it, it will show content of the array. If it is complicated, if it is objects with data fields, you click on it, it will show data fields. Okay. For example, if you go to input component, you will see that inside of input component, you will see service, which is object, because it has this dot service. Right? So it is public part of, no, it's private part, private, but it's still shown here. So you can see public and private. And you can see even content that game service has those values inside. So you can see that the game result is enumeration type 2, whatever it is. Okay. Initial value for computer choice was rock, and this is rock, because I didn't click play button yet. Okay. And user choice is rock because initial value is rock. And this is updated in sync. For example, you see I click scissors and it updates user choice to scissors. Okay. Paper, because it's data bound. So these are variables of input component, because I click it on input. This is super useful for debugging. Okay. The other choice to debug is just to print it to console, but you don't have to print it into console in most cases like this, right? Then when you go, for example, to output page, play, that is gone, but now you see output. Why it's gone? Because it is replaced by the framework into output component. Here it is, output component. And output component has this data. It has game data, what is displayed, computer choice scissors, game result, and user choice scissors. Okay. Game service also available because we injected this into constructor, so it became this dot service, this dot game service. Okay. A game result is it's an enumeration type. Imported automatically for internal reasons, so I can use it inside of the template. So inside of output, if we open TS, we will see that this is imported automatically so I can use this type inside of template. I didn't type this code. Once I started to refer this inside of template, it was inserted automatically. And since it's here, it is shown here. Can we see variable values inside of methods this way? This way, no, but we can see it. Why we cannot see it this way? The reason is that variable values inside of the methods exist only while you run this method. They are created when method is called, and they discarded when method is done. For this reason, you cannot see it here, because they exist only when you run this method. So in order to see variable values inside of the method, you have to stop executing this method. There's no other choice, because these variables will be destroyed when method is done. So how to do it? You have to stop your code. In order to stop your code, you have to use breakpoints. So let's learn how to do it. In order to use breakpoint, you open this button, source code, in order to add breakpoint. If it doesn't open, in this case it did, but if it didn't open, sometimes it doesn't, you restart your program. So you literally go here, stop and run. Okay. Okay. It stopped. Okay. Now it's stop and run. Okay. So if it doesn't show up, you stop and run it. for example, where would I want to stop? I need to find some method to stop. So, for example, I'm going to service and I want to stop it here. So you click line number and it will insert breakpoints. So in order to stop it, it needs to reach this point. It means program should execute up to the point to catch the stop point, right? So go back, and I do need to click play, because in order to reach this play, I have to click button, right? So play, boom, it's here, and you see the variable value rock because I selected rock. It is shown here, and you can also move mouse on top of it and see rock. So you don't have to print it. You can move mouse around and see it. This is not shown. This is not shown. It shows previous value because this line is not executed yet. Because code is stopped here. So if you click run, it will continue to next breakpoint or to the same point if you have only one, right? You can also do it line by line. This will take you to next line. This will take you to method call, stop into. It will take you to this method call, get random choice. This one. Step into, it takes you to method call. This will take you to next line. This will take you out of the method, out of this method. Okay. So step out of the method, step into method call, step over to next line, step over this piece. Right? So logically, if I want to see this piece, right? You see, computer choice is not shown. Why? Because it stopped here. It didn't execute this line. It just stopped. Computer choice variable will be available when I click this button. Okay? So, and now you see computer choice is scissors. Okay? Because when it stops here, the line is not executed. It just stop point. And I could see user choice, rock, and now computer choice, scissors, but this is not assigned yet. It will be assigned when I execute this code. Okay. And if I do step into, it will take me to the constructor of it. It will be step into. Okay, let's check. Step into. You see, it took me into line that is part of the constructor. So it is stepped into the class, essentially. And assignments. So next step, it will be constructor call. Okay. So it's not necessarily write constructor, but it will be taken into the logic of the class. Okay. So essentially, this is part of the constructor, so it took me there. All right. So we're here, and we're about to assign this variable, so it shows assignment of this variable, essentially. Step out will take me back to that, out of this thing. Right? Step out of this assignment, now we're here. Step out of the constructor call, so we're here. So this is the logic of using debugger. So this is debugger. It will keep stopping unless I remove this piece. How to remove it? You click on it and it's gone. Okay. And after this, probably you need to reload it because this is still waiting for it. You need to click run. Yeah. So it can continue because it's still. I removed its breakpoint, but I didn't click run, so it is just waiting till next step. So I'm here. So this is how to use debugger. Super great tool. Use it. If it starts misbehaving, just reload page. Just reload application, stop application, start it, and it will restart. So it's not perfect. Sometimes it misbehaves, but when things misbehave, you just restart it. Okay. So in this program, unlike in the previous program, on clicking this button, I go to the next page. So let's discuss this logic. So let's see. In my input page, this button has router link and it has on click. So potentially I have two processes or two tasks. One go to next page and one execute this one. It appears like this is race condition. Whatever first wins and second may fail. In JavaScript there is a convention. Do navigation after click. So it will execute this, after this it will navigate. So it is not an issue here. It will execute click and after this take navigation. But there is a big issue associated with it. It works only on click. If you have submit button, it will be submit event. And submit event doesn't have this convention. So this trick does not work with forms. This is not form, this is just user input. In order to have form, you have to have form tag enclosure around it. And for the form, it is not click event, it is submit event. And for that submit event, there is no such convention. So this logic will fail for submit. It works for click, but it will not work for submit. What should we do for submit? For submit, we should execute navigation to next page if we need to navigate to next page after submit. Inside of the event handler, using TypeScript. So next example is doing it. Okay, questions? So next example does navigation after clicking button, but that example is using forms to submit data. In this case, it's not a form, it's just one input.